SMS की लिंक निकालो, वो आ गया लाइव। लिंक कहाँ है? तो लाइव चले गए, लिंक क्या है? स्ट्रीम सेटिंग्स, स्ट्रीम यूआरएल। आपको ही भेज दो, आप देख लीजिए आपके फ़ोन में खुलेगा क्या। ये नहीं, RTP लिंक है।
कुछ और नहीं थी वहाँ जो यूट्यूब की नहीं दिख रही थी, कुछ और दिख रही थी।
हाँ आ गया एक कॉपी, ये वाला आप ट्राई कीजिए। आ रहा है, चलिए सही है। आपको वॉल्यूम रख लीजिए, कान में कुछ है। हेलो, चेक 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 चेक, सम आ रहा है कुछ आ रहा है। अस्सलाम वालेकुम, सलाम, अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व अला मुहम्मद, अल्लाहुम्मा सल्ली अला। चलिए करवा दीजिए शुरू। सल्लु अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद, सल्लि अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद।
सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद,
اللهم صل
सल्ली अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद।
Yeah, sorry. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
اللهم صل على محمد व आलि मुहम्मद।
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله فاطر السماوات والأرض جاعل الملائكة رسلا جاعل الملائكة رسلا أولي أجنحة مثنى وثلاث ورباع يزيد في الخلق ما يشاء إن الله على كل شيء قدير. ما يفتح الله للناس من رحمة فلا ممسك لها فلا ممسك لها وما يمسك فلا مرسل له من بعده وهو العزيز الحكيم. يا أيها الناس اذكروا نعمة الله عليكم هل من خالق غير الله يرزقكم هل من خالق غير يرزقكم من السماء والأرض لا إله إلا الله ترجع الأمور. وإلى الله ترجع الأمور. يا أيها الناس إن وعد الله حق فلا تغرنكم الحياة الدنيا ولا يغرنكم بالله الغرور. إن الشيطان لكم عدو إن الشيطان لكم عدو فاتخذوا عدوا إنما يدعو حزبه ليكونوا أصحاب السعير. صدق الله العلي العظيم. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صل على محمد وآل محمد.
صلوات بر محمد و آل محمد. صلی علی محمد و آل. Please recite a Surah Fatiha for all the marhumin. صلوات بر محمد و آل محمد. اللہم صلی علی محمد و آل محمد وعجل فرجهم. برچھیوں میں دل کا ٹکڑا رہ گیا، برچھیوں میں دل کا ٹکڑا رہ گیا، شے کی آنکھوں میں اندھیرا رہ گیا، شے کی آنکھوں میں اندھیرا رہ گیا، اے فلک سہنے ستم کے واسطے، اے فلک سہنے ستم کے واسطے، کیا نبی زادوں کا کنبہ رہ گیا، برچھیوں میں دل کا ٹکڑا رہ گیا، نوک نیزہ پر سر اکبر کے ساتھ، نوک نیزہ پر سر اکبر کے ساتھ، لیلا کا کلیجہ رہ گیا، برچھیوں میں دل کا ٹکڑا رہ گیا، اب نہ وہ اکبر ہے نہ حسن و شباب، اب نہ وہ اکبر ہے نہ حسن و شباب، ہاں مگر دنیا میں چرچا رہ گیا، برچھیوں میں دل کا ٹکڑا رہ گیا، اٹھتی کیوں نہ کر ردا بنت علی، اٹھتی کیوں نہ کر ردا بنت علی، بے کفن بھائی کا لاشا رہ گیا، برچھیوں میں دل کا ٹکڑا رہ گیا، इसको कहते हैं वफा ले वफा, इसको कहते हैं वफा ले वफा, भर के सखा मश्क प्यासा रह गया, भर के सखा मश्क प्यासा रह गया, बरछियों में दिल का टुकड़ा रह गया, जल गए खैमे रिदाएं छिन गई, जल गए खैमे रिदाएं छिन गई, खाने ज़हरा में अब क्या रह गया, खाने ज़हरा में अब क्या रह गया, बरछियों में दिल का टुकड़ा रह गया, शय की आँखों में अंधेरा रह गया। सल्लल्लाहु अलैहि मोहम्मद व आले मोहम्मद।
सल्लु अला मुहम्मद व आलि मुहम्मद। Worlds apart, worlds apart, I search for the road from me to you, O Hussein. What veils and what worlds exist between myself and Hussein? Worlds apart, I search for the road from me to you, O Hussein. What veils and what worlds exist between myself and Hussein? Can one who the heart has stolen be worlds apart from his servant? Can one who the heart has stolen be worlds apart from his servant? He who wanders the world of love, I stand alone at this world's end. My eye searches for your figure, so to your wounds I can attend. And yet still worlds apart I stand, even if worlds your love transcends. I wish when you stood there alone, my hand to you I could extend. So is it fair that I can't soothe you, yet to all of my wounds you tend? I wish when swords upon you prayed, that my master I could defend. I stand on the edge of one world, crying out your name, Ya Hussein, and my tears that drip down reshape to write your name, Ya Hussein. Can he whose love destroys reason be worlds apart from his servant? Can he whose love destroys reason be worlds apart from his servant? So is it fair that time can stand still when I am entranced by your mention, yet it won't go back centuries to days of your tribulation? Is it fair that you come to me in each hopeless situation, but I cannot return to you when left you there a whole nation, and you stood there amongst the dead, in your eyes but death's reflection? Drawn in your eyes that tears that saw on Hussein the world's desertion. Tell me how the eye that sees this notices me, O Hussein? How does the man that walk with death seek life in me, O Hussein? Can he whose love Can he whose love time strengthen be worlds apart from his servant? Though time draws us further apart, fires in me you've created. So when my mind recalls your day, I feel your pain on me weighted. I see your day as clear as day, within my eye illustrated. I weep upon my hand my tears, tears and images that they've painted. As clear as I can see this hand, on it with horrors I am greeted. I see fire chased tent to tent, and how your daughters are treated. No, it's not just your eyes that saw these tragedies, Ya Hussein. Millions witness your day and weep beside you, Ya Hussein. Can he who gives man his vision, be worlds apart from his servant? I live in dreams with such deep love. Some dreams all I see is beauty, and some my heart stops in its tracks, and my eyes see calamity. They see sun on the sky perched. As it taunts young tongues so thirsty. They see arrows thirsty for blood, and swords see death as a bounty. Indeed, I am taunted by your love. It can shape the hearts as mighty, yet it can tear the heart apart, and I break down a man empty. What love that gives the heart joy, yet makes the eye weep for Hussein, and yet both in smiles and cries, all it calls for is Hussein. Can the cause of such emotion be worlds apart from his servant? Can the cause of such emotion be worlds apart from his servant? When veils between worlds are lifted, will you hear me cry out your name? Will you search for the voice that calls for its beloved and the burning flame? Will you forget that you are suffering? A soul for this voice it became, so that each time it sought good deeds, your message it longed to inflame. Will you recall those who serve you? Is that not why to us you came? Will you recall those who serve you? Is that not why to us you came? O he who needs servants, please know, my need for you is just the same. When we are judged, will you hear the voice that cries out, Ya Hussein? When we are judged, will you hear the voice that cries out, Ya Hussein? What is judgment if we are not rescued by you, Ya Hussein? Can he who holds such a burden be worlds apart from his servant? Can he who holds such a burden be worlds apart from his servant? Worlds apart, I search for the road from me to you, O Hussein. What worlds and what veils exist between myself and Hussein? Can one who the heart has stolen be worlds apart from his servant? Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali. Can we please welcome the Sayyid with the loudest of your salawat? Recording. Okay. Don't worry about this.
नारे तकबीर नारे तकबीर takbir. Nare risalat. Nare risalat. Nare risalat. Nare Haydari.
Ya Ali.
Nare Safdari.
Ya Ali.
Nare Khaybari. Nare Musawi.
Ya Ali.
Salawat bar Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For the soul of Mir Muhammad Jafar, as well as for the souls of your marhumin, please recite Surah Al-Mubarakat Al-Fatiha. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين بارئ الخلائق أجمعين فاطر السماوات والأرضين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا ونبينا وحبيب قلوبنا وطبيب نفوسنا أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد ولعنة الدائمة على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي أما بعد فقد قال الله سبحانه وتعالى في كتابه المبين وهو أصدق الصادقين بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إن في خلق السماوات والأرض واختلاف الليل والنهار لآيات لأولي الألباب صدق الله العلي العظيم صلوات Dear brothers and sisters in Iman and Islam, Salamun alaykum jami'an wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. First and foremost, أعظم الله أجورنا وأجوركم بمصابنا بالحسين عليه السلام. May Allah accept your remembrance and magnify your reward for remembering the tragedy that befell Abu Abdullah and his companions on the day of Ashura. The topic that we had begun yesterday was this topic of Iman and the different ways in which we can cultivate that Iman, different ways in which we can have our Iman grow. Because there are some new faces here, I want to just recap a couple of the points we mentioned yesterday, and then inshallah we'll keep going with that topic, that mawzu, and try to expand on it a little bit. The main argument that I will be making is that if we want that true Iman, if we want Iman that is grounded, that is rasikh, that is deep, right, then it has to be grounded in the aql, in ta'aqqul, in this process of argumentation and istidlal. And what we said yesterday was that I gave an example of several classmates that I know who, for example, entered the university with me, and when they left, unfortunately, they said that they were not Muslim, right? And there was one person from the Shia school of thought, one from the Sunni school of thought. Now, why was that the case? Perhaps because they were exposed to other ideologies and they didn't have the answers in front of them as to how they could think about Islam, nor was Islam practiced the right way in front of them. So they left. And we talked about Bani Israel when this verse of Quran talks about Bani Israel doing kufr. In other words, losing their faith. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, bi'sa mashtaru bihi anfusahum an yakfuru bima anzalallah. That how wretched was it when the Bani Israel sold their souls, right? When they sold themselves, ishtaru anfusahum, when they gave up their own selves by doing kufr. Meaning what? That when Bani Israel did kufr, when they gave up their iman, right, when they did kufr and disbelieved in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they gave up their entire selves. Meaning that when you lose iman, you have lost your entire self. Right? There's not much left. Right? You have a body, yes, but what else is left of you if you have lost your iman? And the point in saying that was to try to give a spark to you all, to see which direction we can move in as a community if we want to be people who preserve our faith going forward and preserve the faith of our children. Please recite salawat. Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. We said there's different ways in which a person can cultivate iman. One of those ways is through the environment, through the muhit, right? Through the mahol that a person lives in. And that environment, basically, it will give certain things to the child, right? Why? Because his fitrah will be attracted to certain things. So if a child sees, for example, people are volunteering around him, he will be inclined towards volunteering. If a child sees that everybody is on their phone during the majlis, then the child will want to be on the phone during the majlis, right? If the child sees that people are kind, people are loving, people are caring, then the child will adopt those attributes, right? And oftentimes our iman is based like this, and many times we get to a certain level of iman through this process of just observing what is around us and incorporating that into our lives. And this level of iman is acceptable, right? It's okay, but it's not based on awareness, right? It's not based on understanding. Because when a person becomes an adult, what happens, right? A child, when they become an adult, they're able to use that quwwat tafakkur, right? That process of thinking, and now they can make judgments about what's happening around them, right? They can say that this is good, this is bad, this is very good, this is very bad, this is good for me, this is bad for me, right? In all aspects of their life, right? A small child will pick up something and eat it because they don't know it's bad for them. But as they grow, they realize that this is harmful for me, so therefore I won't eat it. Well, that same process will now apply in other aspects of their life, right? So when it comes to their faith, they can also make that judgment that, for example, I choose to follow this faith of Islam, this madhab of tashayyuh, because it makes sense to me. Or I choose not to follow it because it doesn't make sense to me, it's not good for me. Right? But that decision is there when they become young adults, right? So just before I sat down on the minbar, I was having a discussion with some of the young members of our community, and we were discussing certain Muslim influencers in our community, right? Unfortunately, a lot of times the way that Islam is presented today is through personalities on YouTube, right? Who the youth are attracted to, right? Who become influencers, such as, for example, Andrew Tate. Right? Andrew Tate. Now, how is it, on what basis can we critique Andrew Tate? Right? On what basis? Can we say that he's a convert? Okay, so a lot of people are converts. No, we can't say that. Can we say that, he hasn't studied properly? Yeah, that's true, but a lot of people who never studied in the Hawza are giving majalis as well, right? So maybe that can't be the standard, right? There has to be some basis on which we can say that Andrew Tate, what you are saying from YouTube does not represent true Islam. We have to have some basis to critique him, right? And that is only coming through the aql. If we don't have that, then what's going to happen is whatever Andrew Tate says, we will accept it, right? If he says that Islam says XYZ, okay, then we don't have anything to respond to him with. We'll say, okay, Islam says XYZ, right? Or similarly, as followers of Imam al-Hussein, when we want to criticize, right, Bani Umayyah, when we were to say that, for example, Bani Umayyah did this during the time of the Prophet, after the time of the Prophet, during the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen, the innovations that were introduced in Islam, the problems that were introduced into Islam during the period of Bani Umayyah against the Ahlul Bayt, right? We have to have some rational ground in order to be able to say that, right? Otherwise, why are we mourning for Hussein, right? Just because, for example, is it because some people are Sayyid, right? And so they're mourning for their grandfather? No, this is not the reason we're mourning for Hussein, right? They're not mourning because we're related, some people are related to him. No, we're mourning for him because he was the manifestation, the Khalifa of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala on earth, right, who represented Islam in its true form. The message that had been brought by Muhammad and the teachings of the Holy Quran was embodied in Amir al-Mu'mineen and Imam Hassan and Imam Hussein. And that message had been corrupted by other individuals, especially Bani Umayyah. And in order for us to say that, we need to know what was it that Bani Umayyah were doing. For example, right, the third Khalifa was doing what? He was bringing nepotism into Islam. He was giving wealth and positions to people in the Muslim community who did not deserve it, who were openly sinful people, right? Yazid, for example, was an openly sinful person, right? He was openly committing sins in the name of Islam and saying that I am the representative of Islam today. So on that basis, we can critique him, but if we don't have that, right, if we haven't learned about Yazid, about that time, then we can't really say much, right? If we haven't learned what true Islam represents, what it is, then we cannot critique and rotate. Okay, please recite salawat. And so we see that in the Holy Quran, sometimes this mentality of having iman just based on taqleed, based on imitation, is something that is strongly condemned, right? وَإِذَا قِيلَ لَهُمِ اتَّبِعُوا مَا أَنزَلَ اللَّهُ قَالُوا بَلْ نَتَّبِعُ مَا أَلْفَيْنَا عَلَيْهِ آبَاءَنَا أَوَلَوْ كَانَ آبَاؤُهُمْ لَا يَعْقِلُونَ شَيْئًا وَلَا يَهْتَدُونَ. That when it is said to them, meaning the people of the Jahiliyyah time in the Arabian Peninsula, that have iman in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, they will say that, no, we will follow what we found our forefathers doing. And then the response from the Holy Quran comes that, did you ever check to see if your forefathers were doing the right thing? Right? That your forefathers were on Sirat al-Mustaqim, that were rightly guided. In other words, what? Just following what you have seen is not acceptable, it's not enough. Right? There has to be something else. Just because you have seen it done a certain way doesn't mean that that is the way that it must be done today. Right? For example, just the fact that in many communities, right, it's common for women to sit separately. Right? It's common for women to sit in another room and watch the majlis on the television. Right? Is there any shari problem for women also sitting in the same room? No. Right? There's no shari problem. No marja, no mujtahid will say that if you have a majlis, men are here, women are here, that is haram. Nobody says that. I can guarantee you. If you find it, then tell me. I would like to see. Right? Yes, they're observing hijab. Yes, they're sitting separately. Right? Men and women are not interacting for no reason. Now, granted, that is how it has been done in Muslim communities traditionally. But when the needs of the time are different, then the Sharia gives us space to operate. Right? It says that you don't have to do it this way only. There's other ways to do it. Right? When the women are not being educated, when they're not being able to pay attention, then there's other ways, including, for example, sitting in the same room, as long as you observe the guidelines and the etiquettes of the majlis. Right? Is it better that our sisters are paying attention and learning something, or is it better that they're only sitting with other women, but they can't pay attention because everybody's talking, everybody's on their phone? Right? No, of course, we want them to be able to learn. Right? That doesn't mean that's the solution for every community, but in some communities, yes, that can be an answer. Right? Please recite salawat. Now, what we said also was that sometimes people bring this objection, that when you talk about iman based on ta'aqqul, based on ilm, they will say that, well, I grew up and I never had this problem. I never thought like this. Right? This was a point we made yesterday. Right? For example, I grew up in India, I grew up in Pakistan, I grew up in Iraq, and I never had to learn Islam like that. Right? I just kind of went to majalis, right? And I learned. And there's a fundamental disconnect there because you're comparing apples to oranges, because the environment that that person is growing up in is not the environment that your children are growing up in. Right? The environment that your children are growing up in is very different. Right? It's extremely different. In that environment, in India or Pakistan, right, it was acceptable to just go to majalis. It was enough because there were not challenges. Getting a little bit of feedback. I don't know if somebody could Help me with this. Please recite salawat. Allahumma ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. Ajil farajahum.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad salawat.
Allahumma salli ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Wa ali Muhammad.
थोड़ा सा दूर रखें यार. Okay, ठीक है.
Muhammad wa ali Muhammad.
Right, so we can't, if everyone can hear me, then we can't base our iman just based on, right, imitation. Right? And if you'll give me permission, then after speaking to the organizers, and I apologize to the Arab brothers and sisters, but parts of my speech I'll also give a small translation in Urdu, right, for those who are not as comfortable with English. Right, wherever they are, I can give a little bit of translation in Urdu so that they can also take a benefit. Right, so if you'll just give me a few minutes to give a short translation. तो बिस्मिल्लाहिर्रहमानिर्रहीम हमारी बहस इस पे बात पे हो रही कि हमारा अगर ईमान रखना है और इस मुल्क में रह कर के रखना है तो कैसे रखें, किस असास पे रखें. एक असास ये होती है कि आप बस खाली इमोशन के बेसिस पे आपके पास ईमान है, आप आज़ादारी में शिरकत करते हैं, नमाज में शिरकत करें, मजलिस रखते हैं, लेकिन उसके साथ साथ कुछ और नहीं है. तो हम ये जो कहना चाह रहे हैं ये है कि यहाँ पे रह कर के, इस मुल्क में रह कर के ये बहुत ख़तरनाक चीज़ है. क्यों? क्योंकि यहाँ पे इंडिया और पाकिस्तान का माहौल नहीं है. वहाँ पे अगर आप खाली शिरकत करते थे आज़ादारी में तो वो आपके लिए काफ़ी रहता था, मतलब उससे आपका ईमान बढ़ सकता था, साबित रह सकता था. लेकिन अब यहाँ पर रह कर के अपनी चैलेंजेस इतनी हो गई हैं कि अगर कोई बच्चा खाली आज़ादारी में शिरकत करेगा या नमाज के लिए आएगा तो वो किफ़ायत नहीं करेगी. क्यों? क्योंकि आपने इस्तिदलाली तौर से आपने दीन उसको नहीं पहुंचाया. तो वो खुद ब खुद जब स्कूल जाएगा, मदरसा जाएगा, जब यूनिवर्सिटी जाएगा तो उसके सामने मुश्किलात आएंगी और वो उसका जवाब नहीं दे पाएगा. तो हमारी ज़िम्मेदारी आजकल यही है कि हम अपने बच्चों को तालीम कैसे दें और उनको इस्तिदलाल कैसे सिखाएं ताकि वो जब कोई मुश्किलात उनके सामने आए, इल्मी तौर से अगर कोई मुश्किलात उनके सामने आए तो वो जवाब कम से कम दे सके, कुछ ना कुछ जवाब हो उनके अंदर जो जिससे अपनी ईमान को जस्टिफाई कर सके, ताकि कह सके कि हम इसलिए मुसलमान हैं, इसलिए शिया हैं, इसलिए हम खुदावंद मुताला को मानते हैं. अगर वो नहीं है तो वो बच्चे के लिए बहुत ख़तरनाक चीज़ है. एक सलावत भेजे मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद सल्ले अला मुहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद. Moving on to a second point, which is that another thing that gives the importance of this. This is a very kind of latif point that I'd like to make. That if you go to the Hawza, right? If you go to Hawza Ilmiya, right? This is again the bahas is on the importance of ta'aqqul, on the importance of understanding Islam at a deep level through the intellect. If you study the texts of akhlaq, you study the texts of ethics and spirituality. Right? So what they do is they list certain virtues of the soul. They say, for example, it is a virtue of the soul to have sabr. It is a virtue of the soul to have, for example, kathm al-ghayth, to restrain your anger, right? To not get angry at people is a virtue of the soul. It is a fazila of the soul to not get angry. It is a fazila of your soul, a virtue of your soul to be generous, to help people, right? To give them money, to do sadaqah, do infaq, spend money on other people, right? These are all virtues of the soul. So the akhlaq texts, they will list out these things and then they will talk about them. For example, what does it mean to do infaq? What does it mean to have sabr? What does it mean to restrain your anger? Okay, so they have a discussion on all of these things. Do you know what the very first virtue of the soul is that they will discuss? The very first virtue of the soul that is discussed in Islamic texts of akhlaq, right? It's not sabr, it's not generosity, it's not sakhawat, right? It's not, right, restraining your anger. It is yaqeen, right? Yaqeen. Now, yaqeen in Arabic and in Urdu actually means two different things. In English, it means certainty, right? In Arabic, yaqeen means you have complete certainty, right? complete certainty in your faith. In Urdu, yaqeen means belief, right? Which is not what we're talking about, right? Belief can be right, it can be wrong. But the yaqeen we're talking about is not the Urdu meaning of yaqeen. We're talking about the Arabic meaning of yaqeen, which means certainty. Right? The first virtue, the virtue that we all need to strive for in our faith, is to achieve that yaqeen, which means that certainty that, right, we believe in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Prophet, the Imams after him, the teachings of Islam, the Sharia, Day of Judgment, all those things, right? That is actually a virtue of the soul. Why, you might ask, why is it that yaqeen is mentioned, right? Why is yaqeen given so much importance, right? One answer that I have come up with, right? I haven't seen this in a text, but this is something that makes sense to me, is that if you have yaqeen in the true meaning of the word, meaning the deep certainty, right? In Arabic, they also call it qat. Qat means your certainty, right? If you have that yaqeen or that qat, then all the other virtues will come to you naturally, right? If you have yaqeen, then of course you will be generous because you believe that after, if you do something for somebody else, then there's thawab for that action. Of course you will have sabr because you will be patient because you know that inna Allaha ma'as sabirin. Of course you will be able to restrain your anger because you know that if you do not get angry at people, then there is thawab for that, there is a reward for that either in this life or the next life. But all of that understanding is coming based on your yaqeen, based on your understanding, right? Your certainty. So that is one of the virtues we have to get to, right? And that yaqeen is only going to come through what? Through istidlal, through ta'aqqul, through reading, through understanding, through discussion, okay? So don't just take what the Maulana says, right? When I'm saying something, right, I don't want you to say that, okay, the Maulana said it and then therefore, this is what we believe. Actually, I want you to think about it and I want you to discuss it. And then I want you to try to come to that certainty by yourself, right? And we'll give some examples of this as we go on. And we also see that this is something that has been especially emphasized in the madhab of tashayyu. As opposed to other schools of thought in Islam, as some of you may have heard yesterday, Samahat al-Shaykh was mentioning this point as well, that if you look in the madhab of tashayyu, there is a special importance given to the role of aql, which is not found in the school of Ahlul Sunnah. One proof for that we can give is if you look at our books of hadith. If you look at our books of hadith, the very first bab of Usul al-Kafi, the very first kitab of our main hadith text, which is Usul al-Kafi, is Kitab al-Aql wal-Jahl, the book of intellect and foolishness. Kitab al-Aql wal-Jahl. Okay. If you look at the books of Ahlul Sunnah, these ahadith about aql and jahl are not brought, right? There's not a separate discussion of these ahadith. Meaning what? Before you even get to Tawheed, before you get to Nubuwah, before you get to Imamah, there is a discussion of the aql, of what is the role of the aql, right? What is the place of the aql in understanding what is good, right? And similarly, when you look at our scholarship, right? Our scholarship in the world of tashayyu is based on ilm and it is based on taqwa, right? The marja taqleed, if he becomes a marja, he's a marja because of his ilm and because of his taqwa, right? There's not other characteristics. It doesn't depend on which family you're coming from, which community you're coming from, which country you're coming from, right? The standard is that the person must be muttaqi, and then who has the right and deepest knowledge, right? Who has the deepest knowledge? That is the criteria for leadership, right? When we say that the Ahlul Bayt were the correct followers of Muhammad wa Ali Muhammad, we do not say that because they are the family members of the Prophet. Yes, they are the family members, but that is not our reason for saying that they were the best people. Our reason for saying they were the best people was because there was nobody who was equivalent to Amir al-Mu'mineen during the time of Amir al-Mu'mineen. And that is very obvious if you look at the texts, right? तो इसका तर्जुमा हम कर सकते हैं कि जब हम लोग अपनी अखलाकी किताबें देखते हैं हौज़ा इल्मिया में, तो बहुत सारी फ़ज़ाइल और रज़ाइल की बहस होती है उसमें कि मतलब ये फ़जीलत आपके अंदर होनी चाहिए, ये फ़जीलत होनी चाहिए, जैसे सब्र, जैसे इस्तिक़ामत, जैसे सखावत, लेकिन सबसे पहली फ़जीलत क्या है? यकीन, यानी सर्टेनिटी। क्यों ये पहले क्यों लाते हैं? क्योंकि मेरे ख़्याल में ये पहले लाते हैं क्योंकि अगर किसी एक बंदे के पास यकीन, सच्ची यकीन हो, सच्ची ईमान हो, तो सब दूसरे फ़ज़ाइल ख़ुद ब खुद आ जाएंगे उसके अंदर, क्योंकि वो सच में मतलब अल्लाह का बंदा हो जाएगा, सब चीज़ इखलास से मानेगा, सब चीज़ इखलास से प्रैक्टिस करेगा। तो सबसे अहम चीज़ उसके अंदर क्या होना चाहिए? यकीन होना चाहिए। उसके बाद दूसरी चीज़ें भी ख़ुद ब खुद आ जाएंगी। और उसके अलावा हम लोग अपने शिया मज़हब में देखें तो शिया मज़हब में एक तो हमारी शिया किताबों में सबसे पहले अक़ल और जहल की बहस होती है, और दूसरी कुछ मतलब हदीस बयान करने से पहले आप उसूल काफ़ी में देखें तो सबसे पहले वो हदीसें आपको मिलेंगी जो अक़ल की पोजीशन के बारे में बयान करती हैं कि रसूल ने और अइम्मा अलैहिस्सलाम ने अक़ल के बारे में, अक़ल की जायगा के बारे में क्या बयान किया है। तो ये इससे हम देख सकते हैं कि अक़ल की क्या अहमियत है अपने इस्लाम में और अपनी तशय्युअ में। और उसके अलावा भी अगर मरजयत को देखें तो मिलाक, मरजा बनने के मिलाक क्या है? बस यही है कि उस बंदे के अंदर तक़वा होना चाहिए और उसके बाद सबसे ज़्यादा आलिम होने चाहिए। मतलब लीडरशिप का मिलाक हमारे तशय्युअ में खाली इल्म और तक़वा है, उसके अलावा कोई और चीज़ नहीं है। तो इससे भी हम इस्तेदलाल कर सकते हैं कि अक़ल की क्या अहमियत है अपने तशय्युअ में और क्या जायगा है तशय्युअ में। एक सलावत भेजे मोहम्मद वाले मोहम्मद। So what we said was that if you believe in something, right, and it is not based on istidlal, it is not based on the aql, then there's a danger that iman will go as fast as it came, right? Because your children will go to university and they will be exposed to ideas that will critique their point of view, right? When your child goes to university, what is the first thing that someone is going to say to them? Not the first thing, but right, we have, mashallah, Vanderbilt University, right, a top-notch university just in our backyard, right? So inshallah, some of our children go there. But what is one of the very first things that they will be asked by their classmates? They'll be asked, why is it that you believe that there is something beyond this physical body? Right? We have a physical body, but we believe that there is something behind us. Right? This is not it. Right? It's not just what I see. There's also something behind all of this. Right? This is what we believe. Now they will say, because they are materialists, they will say that, why do you believe that? Okay, so now what is our response? Right? What is our response to the fact that there has to be an existence that is not material in nature? Right? At least we have to believe in one wajib al-wujud that is necessary to exist, that is not material in nature. Right? So we can give our proofs for that, and we don't have enough time to go into that specific proof. Or they will say, why is it that you believe that there was a man named Muhammad who lived in 7th century Arabia, 1400 years ago, and he received wahi, right? He received some connection from this divine source, and then he narrated it to people around him, and they wrote it down, and then that book became the Holy Quran. Why do you think that this came from a divine source? What is your proof for this? And if they don't have a proof for that, then guess what? Those people who don't believe, they also have some theories to give you that will try to explain what exactly this thing is called Islam or this thing is called religion. For example, what will they say? Right, what will they say? Number one, they will say that Muhammad was a political figure. Right? What did he want? Power. Right? So this is one argument that they make. Number two, they will say that the Holy Quran takes stories from Christian and Jewish texts and it brings it into the Quran. So Muhammad got it from the Christians and the Jews. And there have been lots of efforts by non-Muslims to make this argument that Muhammad has been copying this from Christian and Jewish texts, and so Islam is just basically borrowing from Christianity and Judaism. Okay, so let's use that as our mawzu, our subject for today, and say if we were to exercise this power of tafakkur, of istidlal, and try to weigh these arguments. So on one hand, right, one argument is what? That Prophet Muhammad was divine, that the Holy Quran is coming from a divine source, and that he received it from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and this became the Holy Quran. On the other hand is the view that, no, Muhammad was after political power. right? Number two, there was no connection to the divine. And number three, he got the Holy Quran from Christian and Jewish texts. These are two different arguments, right? Two different views. So now, if we have this power of ta'aqqul, then we can use that to analyze these two and see which one makes sense to us. Right? We can't do a full analysis, but here are some points to consider. Here are some points to consider, right? Because, okay, I'm skipping ahead. Please recite as-salawat. Allahumma salli ala Muhammad. There is a difference between ilm and aql, right? Ilm is the data, the information that you're getting, right? The information. Many people have information today, right? Many people have access to information. That doesn't mean we have an overload of information. That doesn't mean that they are putting the information in the right place and using it in the right way. Aql, as we said yesterday, means to tie. One of the meanings of aql or ta'aqqul is to tie things together, right? In Arabic, when they refer to tying a camel, the word is aql. Right? One of the words to use to tie a camel is aql or ta'aqqul. Why? Because your intellect is tying two different data points together and it's coming to a natija, conclusion. Right? So what does that process look like? Just if we take this as an example, right? So you say that Prophet Muhammad is taking these stories from other texts, right? You say that he's borrowing these stories from other texts. Okay, that's one argument. Now, what our critique of that will be is to say that if he's taking this from other texts, then why are the stories that are presented in the Holy Quran of the prophets, then why are they different from what is found in the Old Testament and the New Testament? Right? If you look at the Jewish and Christian Bible, the way that the stories are presented is not the same as the stories of the Holy Quran. For example, in the Jewish Bible, in the Christian Bible, it says what? Hazrat Lut, he had an illicit relationship with his own daughters. Right? With his own daughters, it says that. Of course, and as Muslims, we don't believe that Hazrat Lut would do that. Right? The story of Hazrat Lut does not contain anything bad about Hazrat Lut. Right? There's other stories of the prophets we can bring as well, where the prophets are not presented as doing anything like that immoral in the Holy Quran, as opposed to the way they're presented in the Bible. So if you are saying that we are taking the stories from them, then why are the stories that we have in the Holy Quran completely different from the stories that you have? Okay, so then that gives some support to the argument that the Holy Quran is not just borrowing from these other scriptures, right? Number two, if you say that the Holy Quran was copied, right? You say that it was produced by the hands of man, right? Either by Muhammad or somebody else, okay, then why is it that we have nothing like it? Because as we know, the Holy Quran says that if you think that this is the word of man, then bring us the Holy Quran or bring us an ayah or bring us a surah that is like this. So why is it that despite the Arabs of that time being known for their sher wa shairi, for their poetry, they were not able to produce anything like the Quran, despite the fact that they were able to produce and preserve their own pre-Islamic poetry, right? Meaning what? Meaning that the Jahili poetry of the Arabs that they were proud of, much of that continued to exist from that time up until today. If you look at Arab poetry today, we still have evidence of what the Jahili poets used to recite even before Islam. Meaning what? Meaning that if they were able to produce something like the Holy Quran, right? The people who were against Islam in the very beginning, if they were able to produce a text or a surah that matched the Holy Quran in its eloquence, that matched the Holy Quran in its depth, then they would have done it, right? In Arabic they say, lo kana labana, right? If it was there, if they had done it, then we would see it now, right? The fact that they did not do it means that it's not there, right? The fact that we don't have it means they never produced it, right? Is this making sense so far, what I'm saying, right? That if they were not able to produce it, that means that they didn't have that power to produce something like that. So now that gives us credence to the view that the Holy Quran is a text not like something produced by man, Why? Because if it was produced by man, then they would have produced it. We would have it in our hands today. But they didn't do that. Okay, number 3, you say that Muhammad was a political leader. If you say Muhammad was a political leader, that he was just after politics, that he was just after power, okay? Then why is it that if you look in the Holy Quran, it says that you have the right to self-defense, but be wary of your duty to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Meaning, do not transgress the limits. That even when you are defending yourself against a qawm that is infringing on you, then be careful not to overstep the bounds. Why is it saying that if a people hurt you, you have the right to retaliate, but forgiveness is better? Right? You have the right for eye for an eye, to get revenge on them, but to forgive them is better. Why is the Prophet teaching ahkam al-takhalli? Why is he teaching rules of, for example, when you go to the restroom, how to relieve yourself? Right? If the Quran was just a political book, right, then why is it saying that, yes, in warfare you have these things, but if you forgive, it is better for you? Right? So now this gives some weight to the argument that no, this is not just a text of politics. This is also a text of morality. It's also a text of ethics. It's also a text of spirituality. It's also a text of law. Okay, so just using this example, now we have taught ourselves some of the reasons we can give to our young people about why is it that we believe in Prophet Muhammad as being a prophet and the Holy Quran as being a holy text. Please recite a salawat. So I get the sense that most of those who are Urdu speaking, they're also understanding what I'm saying in English. So if that's the case, then I don't need to repeat it in Urdu. If anybody is not understanding, then I can give a short translation, but I get the sense most people are understanding, so we can just continue going. Right, and inshallah, just have a few more minutes of the bayan, and then we'll move to musibah. That, right, this power of istidlal, right, it's very simple. It's very simple, but we can think of the aql as a filter. Right? And this is very important in today's day and age, because again, when we look at the world, right, we can talk about the problems of social media. Lots of problems, right? Lots of problems of social media and phone addiction and the internet addiction that is prevalent amongst the youth today. One of the problems that is maybe not recognized as much, that perhaps people don't realize, right? Because the obvious problems are obvious, that for example, a child is on the phone. Okay, for example, they don't know now how to socialize, right? They don't know how to talk to people, right? Especially adults, right? They don't have that adab, that ihtiram, right? Because they're on the phone too much, right? So they never learn how to interact with people who are older than them, right? And unfortunately, some children are developing, right, mental illnesses such as, for example, autism, right? Not to say that's the only cause of autism, but one of them may be addiction to technology. Why? Because they cannot read human emotion, right? There was a time when we were not using screens as much, right? And so when I saw you, for example, then if you had sadness on your face, right? Then I could see it in your face. I could say like, okay, something is wrong, right? If something was bothering you, then I could look in your eyes, look at your facial expressions just from something very small, and I could say that there's something not 100% today, right? Now we're slowly losing that as human beings, right? But that's just one problem. A deeper problem with phone addictions and social media is what? Is information overload, right? You are getting information from every direction. Every time you go on Facebook, every time you go on Instagram, you are being exposed to information, and your mind cannot process and cannot discern that level of information fast enough and properly, right? Your mind is overwhelmed. And so it cannot make correct judgments about the information that is being presented to you. And so now you are prone to make mental mistakes. Okay, so this is one of the issues. But the aql in Islam, we can think of it as a filter, right? That when ideas are presented to you, right? When ideas are presented to you, then your mind has the capability to judge them based on what it has learned, right? Based on what it knows from the past, bring them to the forefront and analyze those ideas, and then see what makes sense to you, right? Brings you to certainty, right? Maybe you don't have certainty about Islam, maybe you reach something else, but you've gone through that process, right? And so there's a verse of Holy Quran that summarizes this very, very well. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah Al-Zumar, فَبَشِّرْ عِبَادَ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ أُولَٰئِكَ الَّذِينَ هَدَاهُمُ اللَّهُ وَأُولَٰئِكَ هُمْ أُولُو الْأَلْبَابِ فَبَشِّرْ عِبَادَ الَّذِينَ يَسْتَمِعُونَ الْقَوْلَ فَيَتَّبِعُونَ أَحْسَنَهُ. That give basharat, give glad tidings to those ibad, to those servants who hear a qawl, yastami'una al-qawl, they hear something, fayattabi'una ahsana, they take what is best, right? And they hear various opinions, and then they take what is best, right? The word of Arabic that's used here is istima'. Istima' doesn't mean to listen, right? It means, right, when you're doing you're just listening to something, right? I pass by, I hear something. Istima' means to listen and to try to understand something, right? To try to understand it. Meaning what? According to Ayatollah Shahid Mutahari, who gives an explanation of this verse. What does he say? He says that this verse is referring to those people who they use their ta'aqqul as a filter. That when various words and meanings come to them, they try to understand, they analyze them, and then they take and accept what is best of them. Right? They don't take everything. They take what is best. Right? And so that is that very process of ta'aqqul that we are talking about. So what are the take-home lessons that we can take? Right? What are the take-home lessons that we can take? Right? In today's world, right, we don't have an excuse. Right? There might have been a time where we would say, for example, we live in a village and we don't have access to ta'aleem. We don't have access to knowledge. We don't have access to scholarship. Right? Today, that's not the case, right? Anywhere on the internet you look, there are books being produced, right? There are organizations such as Kissa Kids, right? If you're Urdu, all the major tafsir works have been, many of them have been translated into Urdu, for example. Of course, we have so many texts in Arabic. All of these are available online. There are bookstores that can send them to you, right? So I think, one of the things that I would offer, and this is something that some of the Maraja have also commented on, is that we have to have this habit of reading. We have to cultivate a habit of reading in ourselves, right? Now, as a personal example, when I started reading, right, and this is something that I would recommend with your children, is that they might not read religious books in the beginning. That's okay. Right? When I started getting into reading, I was reading a magazine called Sports Illustrated. Sports Illustrated is about sports. Right? It's a commentary about sports. Once a week they publish. It's still published. Right? But I would read about different basketball players, football players, etc., and that built the habit of reading. Right? So we have to get our children into reading books. As much as they listen to lectures, that's okay, but also reading books. Right? When it comes to lectures, there's plenty of resources. Right? In English, there is Mizan Institute. Right? Not only do they have their work on YouTube, they have podcasts. You can listen to a podcast on your way to work, right? If you're an Urdu speaker, right? Tafsir Namune, Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi, has been translated into Urdu. Not only that, but the audiobooks of that translation from Urdu are available online. You can listen to the entire tafsir of the Holy Quran by Ayatollah Makarim Shirazi, right? In an Urdu translation while you drive to work, right? It's available to you, okay? Number two, we have to put some efforts into our educational programs, right? One of the programs that we used to have was Sunday school, right? Now I understand that that slowed down after COVID, and in many communities, actually, unfortunately, there are many communities in the Shia world that when Corona happened, everything shut down. And when Corona ended, they never came back up, right? So we have to start this process again. And I can guarantee you it's not that hard. Why? Because the resources are available to you. If you go to Kissa Kids' website, right, all the books from 1st grade through 12th grade have been produced in good quality form, are available in PDF for free. You don't even have to download, you don't even have to pay for them. If you want, you can purchase the hard copy, but the PDF form is available on their website from 1st grade through 12th grade for free. You just need a few teachers who are willing to give a few hours on Sunday school, right? And you can use some of the classrooms, and you can group kids of different ages together, right? 6 and 7 and 8-year-olds over here, 9 and 10 and 11-year-olds over here, 12, 13, 14 over there. You have a few different classes, right? And you look at those books, and you see from the diniyat which subjects can the teacher teach. And from Arabic and Quran, mashallah, there's a good Iraqi community, so hopefully you can find some teachers in that subject as well, so your students can learn Arabic and how to read the Holy Quran at a minimum. Right? So it's not as much of a struggle as we think. Right? It takes one person to manage the Sunday school, and it takes 3 or 4 or 5 teachers. Right? And it takes maybe a few $100s to pay for lunch for the children every Sunday, and it takes somebody to take care of the security in the facility, right, to make sure everything is clean, nothing is broken, everything that they need is there. Right? So we're talking about, in a community of this size, maybe 5 volunteers, 6 volunteers. You can run the whole Sunday school very easily, right, with very low expectations starting out. Right? It's not difficult. Right? But it's important to take that step. And the last suggestion I will make is inviting speakers, right? Inviting speakers from the outside. Right? People in different languages who can speak, come here, give a boost and give different ideas to your community on different events. Right? Doesn't have to be every wilada, every shahada, just let's say 4 times a year, 3 times a year. On some of the big occasions, you bring somebody, you invest in an outside speaker to come in, because there may not be enough funds to have someone regularly here doing classes in the English language. But 3 times a year, you invest in somebody who can come here, speak on a topic, do a seminar, right? Do majalis, do lectures, go to people's homes, right? Answer questions, etc., etc. And I guarantee you, you'll see that the community will grow from this, right? The community will grow. People will start coming back. Please recite a salawat. Inshallah, I've spoken too much, and I ask your forgiveness if I've said anything incorrect or for taking your time. Inshallah, we can conclude with a few words of musibah, because the days of Arba'een are coming. Inshallah, we can take a moment to remember the tragedy of Abu Abdullah, alayhi salatu wassalam. Sallallahu alayka ya Abu Abdullah. صلى الله عليك يا ابن رسول الله وعلى الأرواح التي حلت بفنائك عليك مني جميعا سلام الله أبدا ما بقيت وبقي الليل والنهار ولا جعله الله آخر العهد مني لزيارتكم السلام على الحسين وعلى علي بن الحسين وعلى أولاد الحسين وعلى أصحاب الحسين بأبي أنت وأمي يا أبا عبد الله صلى الله عليك يا أبا عبد الله. These are the days of Arba'een. Many of our community members have gone abroad. Some of them may be in Najaf on this day, preparing to walk towards Karbala. We wish we could be there to give allegiance to you, O Hussein, to remember the tragedy that befell you, O Hussein. We wish our hearts were in Karbala. But we cannot be there, so we will send our salams from afar to you, Ya Hussein. On this 20th day of Safar, on the 40th of Imam al-Hussein alayhi salam, Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari comes to visit Karbala with a companion of his by the name of Atiyah. At this point, Jabir had lost his eyesight, so he tells Atiyah, Ya Atiyah, take me to the river of Furat. He takes him to the river of Furat. Jabir does a ghusl there. He washes his body and then he comes out. Jabir wears the best of his clothes and he takes on some perfume and puts the perfume on himself. Then he starts taking short steps towards the grave of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. There is a tradition that suggests that when they arrive at the graves, Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari asks Atiyah, Ya Atiyah, take me to the grave of Aba Abdullah al-Hussein. Atiyah says, I don't know which one is the grave of Abdullah al-Hussein. Back in those days, the grave of Imam al-Hussein was just sand. Atiyah says, I don't know which one is the grave of Hussein alayhi salam. Jabir says to him, take me to each grave, Atiyah. I will tell you which one is the grave of Aba Abdullah. So Atiyah says, Jabir started picking up the sand from each grave and smelling it. He brings the sand to his nose and he smells each grave until he arrives at the grave of Aba Abdullah. Jabir picks up some of the sand, he smells it, he says, Ya Atiyah, hadha qabrul Hussein. Oh Atiyah, this is the grave of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein. Atiyah says, how do you know this, Jabir? How do you know that this is the grave of al-Hussein? He says, I have kissed Hussein, I have smelled Hussein. I know the smell of Hussein, and this is the smell of Abi Abdullah. Jabir stands over the grave of Abi Abdullah. He throws himself onto the grave of Imam al-Hussein. He cries through 3 times, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein, Ya Hussein. Oh Hussein, I am your beloved Jabir, and you are my beloved Hussein. Please respond to your beloved Jabir, Ya Aba Abdullah. But how can you respond when your head has been separated from your body? Then Jabir recites the ziyarah of Abi Abdullah al-Hussein alayhi salam, that is known as the ziyarat of Jabir ibn Abdullah al-Ansari. After finishing the ziyarah, Atiyah says, Ya Jabir, I see a crowd of people coming from a distance towards us, Ya Jabir. Let's go see who these people are. The news comes to Jabir. Oh Jabir, this is your master Zainul Abidin walking towards us. He has come back with his family to Karbala. Jabir stands up. He runs towards Imam Sajjad alayhi salam. Jabir falls down onto the feet of Imam al-Sajjad. He begins kissing the feet of Imam al-Sajjad. He says, O son of Rasulullah, tell me what happened to your family in Karbala. Imam al-Sajjad starts crying. He says, Ya Jabir, where should I begin? Oh Jabir, this is the place where our men were killed. This is the place where our women were taken as prisoners. Oh Jabir, this is the place where I saw the head of my father on a spear. Jabir, this is the place where the horses ran over the body of my father. Then the family comes back to Karbala. When Zainab alayhi salam smelled the fragrance of Imam al-Hussein coming from his grave, she throws herself from her camel onto the grave of Abdullah. She's crying. She says, Oh my brother, should I tell you what we saw on this journey? My brother Hussein, shall I show you my body? It has turned black from the beatings of Bani Umayyah. Every time we cried for you, O Hussein, every time we cried for you, they beat us with their whips. They hit us with their sticks. My hair has turned gray, oh my brother Hussein. Then the daughter of Hussein comes. She throws herself onto the grave of Hussein. She's crying, Ya Abata, my father, I am your daughter. Father, what a difficult journey it was. Your enemies were hitting us. They were beating us, Ya Abu Abdullah. Then Rubab comes forward. She says, Oh Imam Sajjad, where is the grave of my son Ali al-Asghar? Where is the grave of Abdullah al-Radi? Where is his grave? Imam Sajjad turns to her and he says, Ya Rubab, when I buried the body of my father Hussein, I heard a voice coming out from his throat. There was no head from which he could speak, but a voice was coming from his throat. The throat said, "Oh my son Sajjad, keep the body of this baby on my chest." So when I buried my brother Ali al-Asghar, I put him on the chest of Hussein. Ya Rabab, inna lillahi wa inna ilayhi raji'un. وَسَيَعْلَمُ الَّذِينَ ظَلَمُوا أَيَّ مُنْقَلِبٍ يَنْقَلِبُونَ. ماتم حسین.
حسین تیرے لہو کی خوشبو فلک کے دامن سے آ رہی ہے، فلک کے دامن سے آ رہی ہے. حسین تیرے لہو کی خوشبو، حسین تیرے لہو کی خوشبو فلک کے دامن سے آ رہی ہے، فلک کے دامن سے آ رہی ہے. یہ خون ناحق چھپے گا کیوں کر، یہ خون ناحق چھپے گا کیوں کر، جسے یہ دنیا چھپا رہی ہے، جسے یہ دنیا چھپا رہی ہے. حسین تیرے لہو کی خوشبو، حسین تیرے لہو کی خوشبو فلک کے دامن سے آ رہی ہے، فلک کے دامن سے آ رہی ہے. قبول کرنا سکو کٹانا، قبول کرنا سکو کٹانا، مگر نہ باطل سے خوف کھانا، مگر نہ باطل سے خوف کھانا. سمجھ سکے تو سنے زمانہ، سمجھ سکے تو سنے زمانہ، صدا یہ پیاسوں کی آ رہی ہے، صدا یہ پیاسوں کی آ رہی ہے. حسین تیرے لہو کی خوشبو، حسین تیرے لہو کی خوشبو فلک کے دامن سے آ رہی ہے، فلک کے دامن سے آ رہی ہے. جناب عیسیٰ جناب موسیٰ، جناب عیسیٰ جناب موسیٰ، جناب احمد غرس یہ دنیا، جناب احمد غرس یہ دنیا. حسین ابن علی کے غم میں، حسین ابن علی کے غم میں اجل بھی آنسو بہا رہی ہے، اجل بھی آنسو بہا رہی ہے. حسین تیرے لہو کی خوشبو، حسین تیرے لہو کی خوشبو فلک کے دامن سے آ رہی ہے، فلک کے دامن سے آ رہی ہے. حسین لاشا جوان کو لے کر، حسین لاشا جوان کو لے کر چلے ہیں مقتل سے سوئے خیمہ، چلے ہیں مقتل سے سوئے خیمہ. مگر ضعیفی قدم قدم پر، مگر ضعیفی قدم قدم پر اٹھا رہی ہے، بٹھا رہی ہے، اٹھا رہی ہے، بٹھا رہی ہے. حسین تیرے لہو کی خوشبو، حسین تیرے لہو کی خوشبو فلک کے دامن سے آ رہی ہے، فلک کے دامن سے آ رہی ہے. عجب ہے کربلا फलक के दामन से आ रही है, ये खून नाहक छुपा रही है, ये खून नाहक छुपेगा क्यों कर, ये खून नाहक छुपेगा क्यों कर, जिसे ये दुनिया छुपा रही है, जिसे ये दुनिया छुपा रही है। हुसैन तेरे लहू की खुशबू, हुसैन तेरे लहू की खुशबू फलक के दामन से आ रही है, फलक के दामन से आ रही है। या हुसैन
चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, ए पुफी चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, ए पुफी चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, ए पुफी चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, ए पुफी चलिए मदीना। हो गया चहलूम कर चुकी मातम, जिंदगी भर है अब तो मुहर्रम। हो गया चहलूम कर चुकी मातम, जिंदगी भर है अब तो मुहर्रम। अरे ताबा कयामत अब है तड़पना, चलिए पुफी अम्मा वतन चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, ए पुफी चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, ए पुफी चलिए मदीना। बन गई कब्रें नजर दिला दी, अश्कों की चादर सबको उड़ा दी। बन गई कब्रें नजर दिला दी, अश्कों की चादर सबको उड़ा दी। अरे घर चलो अब तो जी खोल के रोना, चलिए पुफी अम्मा वतन चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, ए पुफी चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, ए पुफी चलिए मदीना। ए पुफी अम्मा होगी कयामत, पूछे जो बाबा हमसे बरकत। ए होगी कयामत, पूछे जो बाबा हमसे बरकत। अरे क्यों नहीं आई बाली सकीना, चलिए पुफी अम्मा वतन चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, ए पुफी चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, ए पुफी चलिए मदीना। अरे कब्र नबी पर पहले चलेंगे, गिरिया करेंगे नौहा पढ़ेंगे। रे कब्र नबी पर पहले चलेंगे, गिरिया करेंगे नौहा पढ़ेंगे। अरे गुजरी जो हम पर नाना से कहना, चलिए पुफी अम्मा वतन चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, पुफी चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, पुफी चलिए मदीना। रोएंगी कब तक नहर किनारे, अब न मिलेंगे अम्मू हमारे। रोएंगी कब तक नहर किनारे, अब न मिलेंगे अम्मू हमारे। अरे हमको अलम है अब उनका उठाना, चलिए पुफी अम्मा वतन चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, ए पुफी चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, ए पुफी चलिए मदीना। कैद में गुजरा सारा मुहर्रम, मजलिस मातम कर न सके हम। कैद में गुजरा सारा मुहर्रम, मजलिस मातम कर न सके हम। अरे घर चलो अब तो जी खोल के रोना, चलिए पुफी अम्मा वतन चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, चलिए मदीना, چلیے مدینہ اے پھوپھی چلیے مدینہ چلیے مدینہ چلیے مدینہ چلیے مدینہ اے پھوپھی چلیے مدینہ یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین
یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین یا حسین ہے کربلا کے بن میں غریبوں کا اربعین ہے کربلا کے بن میں غریبوں کا اربعین ہے کربلا کے بن میں غریبوں کا اربعین ہے کربلا کے بن میں غریبوں بنی شبیر کے مزار پر زینب کی ہے جبین آنسو بہا رہے ہیں کھڑے عابد حزین آباد تھی حسین کے قدموں سے یہ زمین آباد تھی حسین کے قدموں سے یہ زمین اب حال یہ ہے سر پر کوئی صاحبہ نہیں ہے کربلا کے بن میں غریبوں کا اربعین ہے کربلا کے بن میں غریبوں کا اربعین ماں جائے پہلے آگ لگی خیمہ گاہ میں ہر گام ایک تازہ قیامت کی راہ میں بچی کی ہچکیوں کا ہے منظر نگاہ میں بچی کی ہچکیوں کا ہے منظر نگاہ میں زندان شام میں ہے سکینہ یہاں نہیں ہے کربلا کے بن میں غریبوں کا اربعین ہے کربلا کے بن میں غریبوں کا اربعین عباس نامور جو حرم کا تھا پاسباں روتی تھی یاد کر کے جسے ساری بیبیاں بے آس جس کی لاش پر تھے شاہ دو جہاں بے آس جس کی لاش پر تھے شاہ دو جہاں لاشا کہیں تہات کہیں اور علم کہیں ہے کربلا کے بن میں غریبوں کا اربعین ہے کربلا کے بن میں غریبوں کا اربعین عباس تم نہیں تھے قیامت گزر گئی میں کربلا سے شام تلک ننگے سر گئی گودی کے پال مر گئے میں کیوں نہ مر گئی گودی کے پال مر گئے میں کیوں نہ مر گئی زینب تڑپ رہی تھی لرزنے لگی زمین ہے کربلا کے بن میں غریبوں کا اربعین ہے کربلا کے بن میں غریبوں کا اربعین مولا لحد میں اپنی چھپا لیجیے مجھے گھر جا کے کیا کروں یہ بتا دیجیے مجھے سنسان گود ہو گئی والی کوئی نہیں سنسان گود ہو گئی والی کوئی نہیں روتا गरीबों का बनी है करबला के वन में, गरीबों का बनी। अहले जहाँ को होगी अगर हक की जुस्तजू, अख्तर असर दिखाएगा मजलूम का लहू। है गम ज़दा बहन की यही एक आरज़ू, है गम ज़दा बहन की यही एक आरज़ू। आबाद ज़ायरी से, आबाद ज़ायरी से हो जाए यमी, है करबला के वन में गरीबों का बनी, है करबला के वन में गरीबों का बनी। या हुसैन 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 या हुसैन। जनवीरन शाम दे लोकां नूं तेरा पैगाम सुनाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। जनवीरन शाम दे लोकां नूं तेरा पैगाम सुनाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। जनवीरन शाम दे लोकां नूं तेरा पैगाम सुनाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। जनवीरन शाम दे लोकां नूं तेरा पैगाम सुनाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। पढ़ पढ़ के खुतबे जनवीरन बातिल दे कसर गिराइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। जनवीरन शाम दे लोकां नूं तेरा पैगाम सुनाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभा। सब पढ़े। जनवीरन शाम दे लोकां नूं तेरा पैगाम सुनाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। पढ़ पढ़ के खुतबे जनवीरन बातिल दे कसर गिराइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। जनवीर शाम दे लोकां नूं तेरा पैगाम सुनाइया, मैं शाम कैद निभाइया। जनवीरन शाम दे लोकां नूं तेरा पैगाम सुनाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। ना पुछ मासूम सकीना दा जिंदान च रोंदी मर गई है, मैं तेरी लाडली बचड़ी नूं, मैं तेरी लाडली बचड़ी नूं चोले दा कफन पवाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। जनवीरन शाम दे लोकां नूं तेरा पैगाम सुनाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। जनवीरन शाम दे लोकां नूं तेरा पैगाम सुनाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। शबीर तेरा ना जिक्र रवे साजिश सी शाम दे हाकिम जी, मैं ओ दे शहर दे विच वीरे, मैं ओ शहर दे विच वीरे तेरी मजलिस करवाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। जनवीरन शाम दे लोकां नूं तेरा पैगाम सुनाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया। जनवीरन शाम दे लोकां नूं तेरा पैगाम सुनाइया, मैं शाम दी कैद निभाइया।
سجاد دے قتل دا حکم دیتا دربار جس دم ظالم نے میں گردن تے گردن رکھ کے میں گردن تے گردن رکھ کے اپنا سالار بچائیاں میں شام دی دن بھائیاں چنویرن شام دے لوکاں تیرا پیغام سنائیاں میں شام دی قید نبھا سب پڑھیں چنویرن شام دے لوکاں تیرا پیغام سنائیاں میں شام دی قید نبھائیاں قوم البنین دے بچڑے نو زینب دار استقبال کرے میں ظلم دی نگری وچ تیرے میں ظلم دی نگری وچ تیرے غازی دے پر چملا آئیاں میں شام دی قید نبھائیاں چنویرن شام دے لوکاں تیرا پیغام سنائیاں میں شام دی قید نبھائیاں چنویرن شام دے لوکاں تیرا پیغام سنائیاں میں شام دی قید نبھائیاں زینب نو قسم غریبی دی ہن دین خدا نو خطرہ نہیں میں اپنے سونے نانے تو میں اپنے سونے نانے تو ہزیان دا داغ مٹائیاں میں شام دی قید نبھائیاں چنویرن شام دے لوکاں تیرا پیغام سنائیاں میں شام دی قید سب صدا دیں چنویرن شام دے لوکاں تیرا پیغام سنائیاں میں شام دی قید نبھائیاں زہرا دی اجڑی بچڑی نے شبیر دی قبر تے فرمایا میں تیرے ماتم داراں دی میں تیرے ماتم داراں دی وکری تو کیر بنائیاں میں شام دی قید نبھائیاں چنویرن شام دے لوکاں تیرا پیغام سنائیاں میں شام دی قید نبھائیاں پڑھ پڑھ کے خطبے چنویرن باطل دے کسر گرائیاں میں شام دی قید نبھائیاں چنویرن شام دے لوکاں تیرا پیغام سنائیاں میں شام دی قید نبھائی یا حسین 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 یا حسین
توجہ زیارت اللہم صل علی محمد و آل محمد بسم اللہ الرحمن الرحیم السلام علیک یا نبی اللہ یا رسول اللہ السلام علیک یا خدیجة الکبرى ام المؤمنین السلام علیک یا فاطمة زہرا سیدة النساء العالمین السلام علیک یا امیر المؤمنین یا علی ابن ابی طالب السلام علیک یا حسن ابن علی المجتبى السلام علیک یا ابا عبداللہ یا حسین ابن علی الشہید بکربلا السلام علیک یا علی ابن الحسین زین العابدین السلام علیک یا محمد ابن علی الباقر السلام علیک یا جعفر ابن محمد الصادق السلام علیک یا موسیٰ ابن جعفر الکاظم
السلام عليك يا علي بن موسى الرضا المرتضى. السلام عليك يا محمد بن علي الجواد. السلام عليك يا علي بن محمد الهادي. السلام عليك يا حسن بن علي العسكري. السلام عليك يا حجة يا صاحب الأسر والزمان. السلام عليك يا شريك القرآن. السلام عليك يا كعبة الإيمان. السلام عليك يا إمامنا وإمام الإنس والجان. عجل الله تعالى فرجك وسهل الله تعالى مخرجك وظهورك وجعلنا من أعوانك وأنصارك والمستشهدين بين يديك. السلام عليكم جميعا ورحمة الله وبركاته.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم قل لوليك الحجة بن الحسن صلواتك عليه وعلى آله في هذه الساعة وفي كل ساعة وليا وحافظا وقائدا وناصرا ودليلا وعينا حتى تسكنه أرضك طوعا وتمتعه فيها طويلا برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين.